Well, hey everyone, welcome to the pre-show for Robertson. Hey Wendy, how you doing?
Hello, sweetie. It's lovely to see you. I'm doing okay, thank you. You?
And I'm fine. I'm better now seeing you. I'm glad
Like,
to see you back from the dead, and
yes.
it's good to have you
Well,
back.
there was a
So,
point last week where I wondered how much my throat would take, but yes, I'm back.
yes. Well, we go live in about 30 seconds. So I'd say about 15 seconds, we're going to go dark. So everybody who's out there that's joining us, we're going to go dark for a few seconds, and we'll be back with the intro of the show at 4:03 when we go live on the network. So everybody, it is now 52 seconds. Wendy, stand by. We're going dark. Hey everyone, good afternoon. Happy Tuesday afternoon. Happy Tuesday evening if you're over there in England. And I want to welcome you to Roberts and Robertson. And Robertson is here. She just stepped off for a second, and I think she's back now. So we're going to bring her on. I just didn't want to show you her empty chair and have you get worried. So, Wendy, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Lovely. How are you?
I am good. I am better now, seeing my better half on the radio.
Thank you
And
very much. Lovely
and
lovely
so
to say.
folks, you don't know what goes on behind the scenes here. This is actually, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. This is actually the fourth time we've said hello and how are you? How you doing? Going ranging from very informal to very formal since we started the process several minutes ago.
Yep.
So welcome to the program, everyone, and welcome, Wendy. So now, today we're gonna talk a little bit about something. Something that Wendy and I have kind of gotten into with this show is, hey Keith, welcome over there in the chat room. And let me just say this: welcome to Keith, welcome to Chief Remeldian, welcome to Field Guy, and welcome to Daniel Ondra. And I think there's some other people stacked up in there. They just haven't shown their faces yet. So everybody, welcome to the chat room and the various chat rooms we have all around.
Mm.
And let me say this as well. While this show does play on subspace.radio live, our radio station, we also broadcast video, and that's audio only. We broadcast the simulcast in video on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. It's my own YouTube channel right now. And we'll be switching that over soon enough to the Robertson. Hello. I got a Joe Biden moment going on here. So we'll be switching to our own YouTube channel, and you can find us over on Facebook in several different locations. And just look us up, Robertson. And so Wendy and I have been doing a lot of, we said the show when we started 9 episodes ago, 10 if you count the one.
Believe it, 9, eh?
Yeah, we're at 9. That's and that doesn't seem like a lot until you go, that's 9 weeks.
Mm.
So we've been doing this show for 9 weeks. If it was a daily show, we'd have 45 shows in the can.
Exactly.
So, but it's not. One of these days, it probably will be. Especially once we start the TV show.
Yeah. We've given it away now.
So we'll let you know when that happens.
Spoiler.
And so we're doing a lot of shows we said the paranormal and history and things like that. And then we've been doing a lot of, I like to call them our psychological shows, where we kind of dig into human behavior a little bit, talk about those. Today, I think we've got to kind of combined a bunch of those all together.
Yes.
Because we're going to talk about history. We're going to talk about maybe a little paranormal in there if it ekes in the cracks, but certainly some psychological and bringing it up into current day. So, Wendy, why don't you let everybody know what it is we're talking about? You're kind of the specialist on this between the two of us.
I don't know if I'd say specialist, but I'd certainly say interest. Well, it's very topical right now. Everywhere you go in the world, doesn't matter what part of the planet you're on, there is a particular book that's just come out called Spare, and it's by Prince Harry, or you want to call him the Duke of Sussex. And everybody is hearing and reading things that probably no one actually thought we'd ever hear before. And it kind of brings up a lot of, excuse me, a lot of stuff, because it's about siblings, it's about families, some of them dysfunctional, some of them, maybe a bit more functional, but it also brings up a lot of history because he actually is stirring the pot of history, because this has happened more than one time in certainly the British monarchy going through the years. So, but I think everyone on the planet right now has either heard or seen or knows what's going on. So we thought we'd look into it.
And all of this, I think, really, as Wendy and I were talking earlier on this, funnels down into, if you bring it into the current day, you can look at, some of this is current day. You bring it down into smaller situations, non-governmental, non-royal family, just day-to-day household problems. You have sibling rivalry. Now, what happens when that sibling rivalry then is bolstered or exacerbated by royal ties, by lines of heredity, who's getting the throne next, kind of thing, who's ruling next. And for me, I will tell you this, and I don't mean this to sound, for any of my British friends listening over there, I don't mean it to sound dismissive or insulting anyway. I am very sorry about that, because I am sitting right here on radio, and I forgot to turn my phone off. What was I saying? We're sitting.
You don't want to insult any of us Brits.
I don't want to insult anybody, but when it comes to Meghan and Harry, I have to say I really couldn't give a rat's ass.
Yeah.
That's what it's come down to. Yep. I rather liked Harry down through the years. I've always had a love for the royal family. I've always had a special love in my heart for Queen Elizabeth. God rest her soul. And so I've got an affinity there. I've been a bit of an Anglophile. I'm a bit more of a, what would you call me? My family's more Welsh and more Scottish. Yep. And I've got those ties. But I've always had a love for the royalty in England. Now, I remember when I was young, you weren't even born yet, I don't think, Wendy. The wedding of Princess Di and Prince Charles.
I was born by then, I have to admit. Yes, I was.
I remember watching that on TV, and I thought, wow, this is a grand spectacle. And when we would do our reenacting, we did French and Indian War, 1759, British troops fighting for the King's Army in the Scottish regiments during the French and Indian War. And we would do reenacting and education days on this stuff. And there was one of the songs that was from a Canadian folk group called something about Fire and Run or something like that. And it's talking about the loyalists in this folk song that were loyal during the American Revolution. And it's in one of the verses, it said, "God save the king." Such a simple thing, they would say in there. And so we always thought, maybe we need to go back to the monarchy. No, nobody in the United States go apeshit on me, because none of my friends, I'm a U.S. citizen through and through.
Come on over. Come back.
Don't tempt me. My family's been here since 1710. The Robards came over from Wales, and so we've been here. We are Native American, though not indigenous as Native American tribes. We've been here for the long haul, but I still have a love in my heart for the motherland, if you will. So all of that to say, I don't really care about Meghan and Harry. I lost it for them a long time ago. I've got my own reasons. What their problems are, you know, you like to say, oh, first world royal problems, you know, and what? And oh, I'm so sorry you're having such a problem, Harry and Meghan. And
you're not on your own. You're not on your own there, because, you know, most people in Britain are pretty much tired of, as they call him, the ginger whinger. And also, you know, he was born into a family with great entitlement, great power. And, you know, I'm sure it's not the easiest of life in some ways, but it's also not the worst kind of life. And I think that what's come out of the book is there's a lot of jealousy and rivalry, and they did this, and what about it? It's just like reading, if you put it into terms, a normal family bitching about each other, arguing about each other. I mean, I'm the youngest of 3 children, and I can't really remember if there were fights about the bedrooms, what size bedrooms, or who got the biggest wardrobe. But I know there was a pecking order, and it kind of went, you know, one down to the other. And I also think as well, in a world where we're all struggling right now, we are all struggling to survive, to pay the bills, do we put the electricity on, or do we, you know, can we afford to put petrol in the car? These people have so much opportunity and money that they should consider themselves very lucky. I think what's changed in England's view of looking at everything is that Prince Harry used to be the favourite, and the Queen was always seen in public polls to be the favourite, and then it would be Prince Harry. He was always very liked, because of his service to in Afghanistan, and also, you know, he's very cheeky chappy. Unfortunately, Meghan, she was welcome to Britain. You know, Britain is very multicultural, multiracial, and she was welcomed here. We opened her with open arms and enjoy, you know, we brought her, you know, we were very pleased to see that the royal family was getting with the times, or whatever you want to call it. But there was always that fear that this would go wrong. And he brought it up on his interview and said, well, she's American, she's divorced, she's an actress, and she's biracial. Well, I don't think any of that really mattered. I think what they were worried about the most was maybe the actress part more than anything else.
Oh, you think?
I think so. And also the fact, I mean, if you think about it, years ago, she would never have been allowed to marry into the royal family because she was divorced. And I mean, and then obviously you hear about all the Camilla, you know, when he talks about Camilla throwing him under the bus because she needed good press, and then he brings up all the stuff about his brother. Now, I mean, to me, that was the most damaging, was what he talked about William, because William is the future King of England,
right?
His brother. And, you know, he's already gone on Oprah Winfrey and said the royal family are racist. And now in the next interview, he's like, no, I actually never said that. The British press did. Well, actually, that's not true. You did say something like that, Harry. We all heard it. So I would say that half of I'd rephrase that. I'd probably say a lot of the United Kingdom and the world now looks at it and goes, yeah, I see your point of view, but
yeah. I think, you know, this is my own personal opinion. I would think, you know, you're throwing away a lot if you're walking away from your family, first of all. Secondly, maybe he felt their family wasn't close or whatever. I always thought the brothers were fairly close after the death of Diana. And
obviously not.
and apparently not. And he's got his tell-all stories, and the tell-all stories that I have heard, because I have not read the book, and I won't unless somebody makes me.
Well, apparently it's selling really well. I mean, there's talk
Yeah.
that some people have lowered the price. Other people are saying that it's the fastest selling book at the moment. And it reminds me of when Princess Diana, of course, brought out her
Yes.
book, although she technically didn't, but by Andrew Morton. I
Right.
think people love to know what goes on behind the curtain, but the trouble is, Scotty, if you take the mystery away, if you show people how really bad it really is, then it kind of goes sour. And the thing is about the United Kingdom, we are a monarchy-led country.
Yes.
We're not, we were a republic many years ago. That didn't go down too well. And so it is quite, what he said is quite damaging. Some of the things he said is kind of damaging to, I would say, the king and also Prince William.
Yes. What now? You're a British subject, so I can't expect you to. I know you can be honest, but you can express an opinion. So I won't ask you this direct question to you. But do you get a feel for how the nation feels about King Charles?
You see, a couple of years ago, I would have said we never wanted a Queen Camilla. Never, ever wanted a Queen Camilla. Because none of us who are of a certain age have forgotten the three of us in this marriage. And so we still, I have to say, she is still looked upon about the fact that, she was the mistress of the Prince of Wales.
Right.
And she did help to damage that marriage and to split them up. And who knows what would have happened? Would Diana still be alive? One will never know what would have happened. So King Charles has, his popularity has gone up quite a lot. And I think people are supporting him for sure. And whether we like it or not, we've got Queen Camilla. I'm not quite sure how I feel about her. I know people that worked at Buckingham Palace, and they've actually said that she's actually very down to earth and a nice person. Who knows? I mean, who really knows? But
right.
I would say the UK is probably standing, a lot of the UK is standing behind the king for sure.
Well, that's a good thing. I didn't know she was actually going to become queen because I didn't really think about it. If I'd thought about it, I think, well, yeah, when a king takes a wife, she's the queen. But I know, like with Queen Elizabeth, her husband was never the king.
No.
So I thought, does it work the same way when a king marries a woman? And well, obviously not. It never has through the ages.
No, because with a queen regent, that would be if you're born to the role, like Elizabeth was. Queen Elizabeth was queen regent. Queen consort is if you're married to the king. So when the Queen Elizabeth came to the throne, the Duke of Edinburgh didn't want to. I don't think they actually wanted him. There was a lot of bad stuff. I mean, because he was Greek origin, some of his family were in the Nazis. They were involved in stuff. It was put down that so she gave him the title of the Duke of Edinburgh, which comes with a lot of power in itself. But he was, although he was technically, he was never called king consort. No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I was curious about that, how that all worked. And it's so funny. It's worth mentioning that for as old as I am, I have only ever known Queen Elizabeth to be the Queen of England,
as we
my
all
entire life until she passed away. So.
And she's much, I think when she died, England kind of went, oh, hang on, she was the stability in a lot of ways. She was seen as the grandmother of the nation, and she was always never complain, never explain. And I think that's a very good way to be in some ways, because once you start going, he said, she said, they do an interview, it gets messy. So I think that what they've done is pretty well good to keep their mouth shut. I don't think you will I don't think you're going to hear from the King and William. It may come through friends of a friend of a friend, but I cannot see them sitting down to do an interview. Not at all.
That makes sense. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. How
No.
many kings have you seen, that come on Johnny Carson? Well, Johnny Carson. Why did that pop in my head? He's been gone for years. The late night shows and things like that. You see American presidents do that. And I always thought that the doing the interviews like that kind of degraded the office a little bit. But that's my own opinion. I am a stick in the mud sometimes.
But do you remember the interview that he did do? And they asked him, I think it was, I can't remember, was it David Dimbleby? And he actually said, he brought up Mrs. Camilla Parker Bowles and have you been faithful? And he said, yes, until my marriage broke down irretrievably. So there was an interview, and because everyone remembers the terrible interview recently with Prince Andrew in it, which was so awful to watch that you're just like, oh my God.
By the way, in the chat room, thank you, Field Guy, for reminding me that Johnny Carson died. Johnny Carson died in 2005. Long time ago. So that was just a brain fart. We'll call it in this show. So, and I had a question for you, or maybe just a comment that you can comment on. There was a time when we had heard years ago that if Queen Elizabeth dies, they're pretty darn sure that Charles is going to step aside and let one of his sons take the throne. Now, we heard that years and years ago. Was that ever a pervasive rumor in Great Britain?
There would have to be a lot of public opinion against, and they do polls all the time. Believe me, they do polls. Ever since King Charles I had his head cut off, the royal family keeps up and wants to know exactly what the British public are thinking about them. Who knows? Maybe if the public was really against him, but I doubt it, because they come from the same stock, as in they're born, this is their role. And unless they abdicate for health or a personal reason, they will be in that role until they die. And that's what they're meant to do.
Right. I need a job for life like that.
Well, wouldn't it be? But the thing is, I suppose you think about it, you don't really have, you're born into it. You don't have a choice. You're born into that role. You have a choice to leave it, like Harry's done, although he was never going to be king, because if you think about it, you've got Charles, William, George, Charlotte and Louis, and then would come Prince Harry down the line. But he's still an heir to the throne right now.
Sure.
God forbid there was a terrible event, but hopefully that will never happen. And I think a lot of the public can't wait, if I'm really honest. I think a lot of people are looking forward to King William being there.
And if Charles has the longevity of his mother, William might be 75 years old too.
I have a feeling that I don't think so. I have a feeling that it won't be too long before William is, or at least, on the,
And you're not speaking treason. It's just just a wonder. No. I get it. So
but
not like it used to be.
No, it's not rare in the royal family to abdicate. Over history, there's been so much. And I see what Matthew Sainsbury's just written about. Nostradamus predicted that Charles will abdicate, and one never expected to be king comes from a guy. Yes, there's that rumor going around, but not being funny. Nostradamus said a lot of things, and it's been trying to be, what's the word? Other people have tried to understand what he actually meant, right?
Yes.
But no one really knows.
No one really knows.
No one really knows.
And when it comes to ancient predictions and things like that, it's really hard to say who's got their finger on the pulse of what's really going to happen. If he was even thinking that at all. So good information over there in the chat room, Matthew. But probably
on Matthew to prompt us if we get stuck.
Yes.
because I mean, Dave's written Good King William, and I think it's really, really true that people are looking, and I have to be honest, it's probably because of who his mother was as well.
Yes.
You look at William and you see Diana. He looks like he's a Spencer. He looks like Diana, but and Americans seem to love Diana. They took her to their heart. And who knows, she probably would have lived in America, I would have thought, quite a lot, had time been different to her, because she loved it out there. And I think that what I found was very interesting was that in his book, he talks about that he's visited psychics, and he's had all kinds of messages from his mum. And he brings up one of the I mean, straight away, this is the thing.
This is William you're talking about, right?
This is Harry.
Oh, Harry's book. Right. Okay.
And what I don't like if you have a client, they're a client and you don't break confidence. That's the way, that as a psychic and as a medium and as a clairvoyant, I would not break confidentiality. So when I saw Sally Morgan, is it Sally Morgan, the medium or psychic, famous on
I don't know.
Yeah, and she was telling everybody that he'd been to see her, or that Diana used to come and see her, and I was like, why are you doing that? Why are you breaking confidentiality? Because at the end of the day, that's are you open to the highest bidder? So that was really, really sad, and because everyone talks about Harry looking like what was his name, James?
Oh yeah. The rumors, yes.
Because he's got red hair and he looks, he's a similarity. But the Spencers are all known to have the red hair runs through the Spencers. He also looks very much like the Duke of Edinburgh when he was younger. But I have to say, I hear a lot of, when he goes on and does the whinging, you can hear a bit of Prince Charles in him too.
Oh, sure.
You can see it. You can see the tone of voice and, so I actually, as much as people like to speculate, I actually think that Harry is probably a Windsor.
Yes. Now, I do have to ask, that brooch that you're wearing on your jacket, is that the most noble order of the Garter Star that you're wearing there?
How did you know? It was actually, I got this from a lady in the UK. She's quite well known. Well, her name is called Lauren Harris, and I actually got it from her. And I have only worn it a couple of times, and I thought, do you know what? As we're talking about Britain tonight, I'll stick it on.
I love it. I saw that when you first came on screen. And,
well, I got to for those that can't see it, it's Diamante, but it's a Union Jack. So
yes,
flying the flag.
And it's, we used to, at of all things, the fictional Renaissance Festival, where there was a fictional Order of the Garter, and they all had that seal. Dave Potter, Uncle Dave, here in the chat room today, he's a member of that, and he's got his Garter seal, his star.
Royal stamp.
So yeah, we were very familiar with that along the way. She's giving herself the royal stamp, Uncle Dave said. There it is.
I wouldn't mind the royal stamp, let's be honest. That would pay a few bills.
Yeah. Let's see, Queen Wendy.
I don't think
got a ring to it. Huh?
I might have to change that name though. I don't think Princess
What would be your regnal name if you took the throne?
Oh my God. Well, I'd probably have to go for my third name, which would be Helena.
Helena,
yeah.
So Queen Wendy Helena.
Well, actually, just get rid of Wendy completely. I can't stand the name. I've never enjoyed having the
folks
name.
Over there in the chat room, why don't you type out your best regnal name for Wendy?
Oh,
and we'll read some of those off as we're going. When she gains the throne, what name will she take?
But what throne?
But what throne? Yeah, I know Hatshepsut, who was the Pharaoh queen.
Definitely don't think it's the United Kingdom one, that's for sure.
Oh, not the United Kingdom? It'd be the United Isle of...
Actually, that's pretty much covered, but it's also because we're coming up to the coronation in May of next year. which is kind of interesting with Scotland, because obviously there's this, is it the stone, which
The
used
stone
to
of Scone, yes.
which sits underneath the
Used to. It's now back in Scotland.
Yeah,
So,
it's gone back, but I mean, we kept
the
it under
stone
the
of
throne.
destiny.
Yeah, we were very naughty. We kept it under.
Yes, you were naughty.
We kept it under the throne, and then we said, "Here, we'll give it back."
That was Edward the First that took that, wasn't it? Didn't Edward the First say, "I think I'll take this stone myself"? Wasn't it him? Longshanks?
Wasn't he Edward II? Longshanks.
No, Edward the First was
I'm
Longshanks.
sure I'll make Matthew to tell us which one was Longshanks in a minute. But it's like
Edward the First was.
They will bring that stone down in procession, and then we'll bring it down for put it underneath, and then and also they were saying that normally lots of people bow in front of the king. Lots of dukes and people like that, they do the whole bowing, and he's got rid of all of that. The only person that will bow in front of him will be the Prince of Wales, in honor of all of them. So I think Charles is trying to take away some of the pomp and ceremony and kind of bring it down to,
he's trying to make it more relatable, I think.
He's got, after this week, I think every family in the world can relate to the stress of going on, of like, they said what? He did. I mean, he even talks in the book about how he lost his virginity and if he's circumcised or not. And it's like, we don't need to know.
Who wants to know?
We don't need to know that,
and now, folks, straight from London, we have the news for you on Harry's foreskin. I mean, who wants to know?
Exactly. And it's also the fact that he lost his virginity to an older woman behind a pub, I believe, called The Dog and Duck. And if you read the book, which I haven't, but I did see a selection of it, and it did say something like, I mounted her quickly, and I'm like, I'm never going to, I can't. We don't need to hear that. I don't want to, so yeah.
I'm not in line for the throne, so I can tell you that I mounted her, and I mounted her quickly.
Exactly. Behind the Dog and Duck, and
the Dog and Duck. Nice.
It's just like, there is some, I mean, he said that he's like, I did love that the British interview slightly more pushed his buttons than the American one did. And I think it's because you lovely Americans are quite polite. And the English, like, we don't give a shit, we just want to know. And so the guy who actually interviewed him was actually a friend of him, and he's also a friend of William's, but lately he's been more on Harry's side. But he actually said, why don't you give up your titles? And he's like, well, what difference would that make? Well, actually, might make a lot. But the thing is, I don't think Prince Charles is going to take away their titles, because Meghan, from what we hear, has her eyes set on being in politics. And if she wants the top job in America, that's the rumor. If she holds a title by another country, as in Duke or Duchess or Prince or Princess, they can't be president.
She can't.
No.
Now, she's an American citizen. Yeah. But when she marries British royalty, does that make her then... That's something totally different than just getting your green card, so to speak. So, but she's a citizen already. But would that I think having any kind of title at all would preclude her, a foreign title from the United States.
Yes, it precludes her. So I think the royal family will not take them away. And then if they took away the Duchess, she would then be Princess Harry. Or so she still gets another, because he's a prince, and they will never take that from him because of who he is. So in a way, maybe they're getting their last laugh going, you're stuck with it because we're not going to take it away. Because can you see her in the top job in America?
No.
God.
No, I really couldn't.
No.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys don't want her as
I know I don't care for her now, and I would care for her much less if she was in politics in the United States. Yeah. So, but I could see Prince Harry. He's never going to lose his princely title. No. I could see him when he's 57, He's fishing somewhere off a dock. Oh, what do you do? Well, I'm a prince. I was once, still am. Don't do anything, but
That's if she hasn't got tired of him, of course, Scotty, because let's be honest, the
yes,
money's on that marriage won't last
yes.
forever.
I would think that some of the draw for her was being a royal. It's just a thought. Convoluted thoughts go through people's minds. Now, let me ask you, since we were really talking about getting into sibling rivalry in this episode, we've all experienced it to one degree or another. Let's put it that way. And we've got our stories to tell, but to get first to the current, and there's royal families all over the world. So we're focusing on England because Wendy's British, and that's what we know the best. It's the
bridging the pond.
Bridging the pond because we can. So didn't Harry write a lot of interesting like tell-alls between he and his brother?
He did.
In this book.
He wrote a lot of things about the fact that they weren't as close as people thought they were, that when he went to school, William said to him, he's like, hi, I'm here now, we can hang out. And he was like, no, I don't want to know you. You don't know me. Well, not being funny, but most younger siblings go through that, because I did, when I went to school, my sister was there and she was kind of like, if she had to. She was sweet, don't get me wrong. As she got older, she was much better. But when I was first younger, I was probably the annoying younger sister. Yes. But also there was fights and arguments between them. And there was definitely a lot of jealousy. And I think this goes on in all our families. And I don't know whether it's a natural progression or if it's like something inside us is feeling inadequate or insecure or needing reassurance. We're all very different people, but I think there definitely is siblings. And your microphone has just gone off, Scotty.
I turned it off with my cough button.
Oh, I cough all the time, don't worry. But I mean, for sure, like growing up, I think sometimes my mum was an only child and she always wanted to have siblings. She never wanted to be alone. And she said, I would have done anything to have had a sibling. Well, I have two. And one plays a part in my life, one doesn't. And that's sad, but it's also the way it is. And it's probably for the best. But I think that looking back to when I was young, there was definitely dynamics of got on really well, hated the other one. My sister and I used to fight like cat and dog. And one of the favorite stories she likes to bring up to throw at me and remind me, we used to have these dolls called Tiny Tears and Teeny Tiny Tears. And one day when she was at school, I drew tears on her doll because it wouldn't cry. She came home and went ballistic and at me, and I literally got it in the neck. And there was a lot of, and how dare you do this and that. And that's just like, I remember thinking, I've done nothing wrong. But, he's right. Like when Matthew's written down, it goes back even to Cain and Abel. Let's go back that far with siblings. It's well known that they all fight, or there's jealousy, or they want to kill each other, or they don't get on. And they also do get on as well. But Cain and Abel, let's think about those.
It's funny. I have 6 children, as you know. And the 3 older ones from a previous marriage, they all seem to get along okay. I didn't see a lot of rivalry there. The oldest were twins, and they were just, not Siamese twins, but they were joined at the hip, figuratively speaking, and always have been and still are 30, and they'll be 31 in a couple of weeks. And my oldest son was 9 years younger, and the only problems they had was, Dad, will you keep Sam out of our room? That kind of thing. I didn't see that as rivalry of any kind other than exasperating little brother who wants to mess around with everything they have. My three younger kids, 13, a boy 13, daughters 11 and 8, constant. There is constant. Now, I try to look at it and say, is there rivalry here? Yeah, there's rivalry for the spotlight.
Mm.
And it's like, none of you, I've told them, I said, look, none of you are inheriting the throne, so you can all stop right now, I told them. But there's all of that goes on. My own brother, I have an older brother and a younger sister. And my sister and I always have gotten along. There's never been rivalry, so far as I know. My older brother was the kind, and I'm going to focus on him. He's the one that, when he was 17, he left for the Marine Corps. He was a year and a half older than I was. And he's never been home since, but we were all together. We had some bonds in our family. There was a grandfather and an aunt that were the bonding things that kept our family going. Holidays and closeness and togetherness and doing stuff. They both passed away, those two, in 95. And things just kind of fragmented and went in many different directions. My brothers stopped talking to my mother 30 years ago. God knows why. He just didn't want to talk to her anymore. My brother looks a little bit like me. He sounds a lot like me. If I talked like this all the time, I'd sound like my older brother, Let me show you how to do it. And he's all right. He's been successful in business and he's good, He's a black belt 10 times over. And I think he owns his own dojo now after whatever. So all of that to say, but he wrote off the whole family. And he chats with my sister on rare occasions. He stopped talking to me 5 or 6 years ago, just out of the blue. Just had no more interest in talking. And so I don't know that that's rivalry, other than he used to tell my mom. My mom reminded me of this just the other day. She said, now he's taller and leaner than me. I'm, taller. He was taller than 6 foot. I was 6 foot my whole life until recently. And I've got the broad shoulder and the big chest and was always built stocky. And he used to tell my mom that he was pissed at me because I got the body he deserved. And I'm like, what can I do about that?
It's the same in my family. Absolutely the same. My sister is shorter. I'm 5'9" and she's 5'5". And she always says, you got the legs, you got the legs. And I think that the other thing is as well is that when we're children, depending on our background and how we're brought up and what goes on, each of us is affected differently. And it certainly happened in my parents' divorce when I was 7. There was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of rows and arguments that we all witnessed. I probably was aware of it, but was shielded probably as much as they could be. But my brother and sister would have heard them. My brother and my sister and I were all very different people. And sometimes it's very hard to believe we're all related. My sister and I are very similar in lots of ways, but I also have stuff with my brother, which I can look back and go, yeah, there was something there with him as well, like, a lot alike. But when you have a sibling that changes beyond all recognition in front of you, and they turn into someone that you just cannot associate with anymore, not that you don't want to, but you for your sake of your health or your life or or an easier life. I haven't seen my brother since I was 36. So we're talking quite, 46. Wow. Oh, I'm 52 now. So it's quite a gap. And I think sometimes it's a good thing that we are related by blood, and that will never change. But I probably won't see my brother till, God forbid, there's a funeral in the family. Because, right. And I think that's what happens over the years. We all change as people. We all change. And it's a bit like friends, isn't it, as well, with friends. Yeah. Friends with someone for a long time, and you go through a lot together, and your good buddies, your work buddies, or your best friends, or whatever you are. And then people change. and they go separate ways. It's the same as siblings. It's the same as friends. And it's heartbreaking, really, because
It
you
is.
share bonds, but at the same time, sometimes it's the hardest thing, isn't it, to have that conversation. I think my
Yes.
sister feels that in the middle sometimes between, not that she has much to do with my brother, but there's that middle. She's the middle sister.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that middle, the middle one again. And
Yes.
so when you're talking about your brother, I can absolutely know where you're coming from.
Yeah. And, with my brother, I'm sure there will be a day where he'll want to have some reaching out. I know they say from the other side of that, they say sometimes you choose your own family. And that's where life is. And we always praise the people who, oh, you found that for your life. So very good for you. But then there's like in our family, my brother just didn't want to have much to do with any of us because none of us were good enough for him, is what it came down to.
Yeah.
And that's really what it still is. He disagrees with us politically, or he doesn't like what we do here or there. So it's better for him to forge his own family somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, I don't even know my nieces who were his daughters.
Yeah.
I met them when they were little, when my brother and I spoke, but I don't know them now. I feel like a bit of an archaic royal family where one side is raised over here, the other's over there, and you never knew each other. And so, but I've always been talking about sibling rivalry. I don't remember specific instances where I wanted to rival. There were times I know I wanted to be like my brother, though. I wanted to show him and show my mother and other family members, school teachers. I had a school teacher in 7th grade that his name was, he was a short, round, Humpty Dumpty looking professor of English language. And his name was Mr. Hanky.
As you know, what a great name. Yeah.
What a great name, Mr. Hanky. And he talked like this all the time. He had these round glasses, and he would talk to me. He'd go, Roberts, how come you're not like your brother? I'm just going to kick you in the ass. I'm going to kick you out into the hallway, and you're going to stand there until you learn to be like your older brother. He was my prize student, and you're just a failure. And I didn't take any of that to heart.
Yeah.
I just, I used to mock him miserably too. So as a result, what's that?
That happened to me because I when I went to school, I remember like my brother and sister had went to the same school, and when I went, they were like, another one. Well, I hope you're going to be like your brother in this or your sister in that. And I thought, well, actually, I'm just me. I and that's the thing is, we are all individual people. We might share genes and we might share DNA, but we're all very different. And, I have, sad to say, my brother and I have walked past each other as close as this, and we don't exist. We do not exist. Wow. And that is a fact of life, and that's the way it will carry on. And the thing is, it's history repeating itself, because my nan, she didn't speak to her brother. There was a big falling out in the family. There was a middle sister, and my actual uncle went to Canada actually, and left his family behind. And when he passed away, my mum, obviously being his niece, was talking to him. And I remember talking to his children saying, actually, you have another auntie. And they were like, no, we only have one aunt. And I was like, no, there's two.
No.
And there are cousins, and they had no idea we existed. So I think that looking at Prince Harry and what's going on with that family, it doesn't matter whether you're royal, whether you're high or low born. The end of the day is families are the most difficult relationship going.
Yes.
And siblings can be some of the hardest. There is jealousy, there is insecurity, there is reassurance, or there is that I've got to do better than him, or why are they getting this? Why aren't I getting that? Why are they getting more cakes? Why are they getting more money? Why are you being really nice to them? And it's interesting that the Bible talks about that story about, and forgive me because I'm not 100% on my Sunday school.
Yes, P's and Q's. Yes,
but the story of the father who gave to both his sons, and one son went.
The prodigal son story.
Yeah.
Yes,
And the other one who stayed behind and said, "But I've stayed. I've stayed. Why?" And it's that whole love bond thing, I guess. But
yeah, it was the younger brother wanted to take off and do his own thing, and so dad gave him his inheritance and said, "Go." And the older brother was all pissed off and jealous. Why does he get his? I'm here working all the time. And then the son comes back and he spent it all. He got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And the son comes back, just crawling on his hands and knees to his dad and asks him to take him in as one of your servants.
Yeah.
And the dad puts his arms around him, calls for the best cloak, puts the cloak on him, and throws a feast. Has the fatted lamb killed you? My son's come home, he says. And the brother got pissed off about that.
Yeah,
Well, I'm here all the time working, and I don't get the fatted calf.
Yeah.
And so, and there's, of course, the lesson that was supposed to be learned with that. And so that to me is, that story to me is more about parenting than about it's the dad who says, "Hey, everybody, my son's come home."
Yeah.
And it's his attitude and what he did. But
I wonder if Charles will do that to the prodigal son if he ever.
You wonder.
If it all goes wrong, let's be honest. If it all goes wrong, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. I mean, looking back to the Queen, her father became king very, very suddenly because his brother, who married an American divorcee, suddenly became king and didn't actually want to be king. Nobody really wants to be king or queen because the amount of work and responsibility and pressure looking on you, right?
But father, I want to sing.
Exactly. Well, I wonder what kind of king he would have been, Edward VIII.
Yes.
But I do, and obviously when he married Wallis Simpson.
It was the actress Wallis was her name?
Wallis Simpson. And obviously King George was, wasn't the strongest in health. He had a stutter. He was quite a shy, insecure guy. And they said the Queen Mother never forgave Edward for doing that because she reckons it brought her husband to an early grave. So he suddenly was, and I wonder if that's why the Queen changed things like the Act of Succession, because if you think about that, Princess Anne has never gone out there and gone, well,
no,
I'm the sister and I'm not going to be, I'm behind Andrew and Edward, and I'm right bad down the pecking order. No, she didn't do that. She went out and got a life. But I think the Queen changed it so deliberately. There is no way that Harry would be coming to the throne.
This is very true. And I do want to say this to our radio audience, that we've got to ditch off the radio in a few minutes. But if you're listening there and you want to stick around, we'll keep Wendy as long as we can keep her. And we'll go a little bit more after the top of the hour. And we'll just be over on the YouTube channel. And so where we are now, too. So YouTube and on the Facebook channels. So when we have to say go, we'll give you our goodbyes over on the radio station. But everybody else, stick around. It's not the captain's cabin, as we have after the Intrepid radio show. But we're just hanging out. And we're going to keep going for a little bit until we wear ourselves out. Wendy, we're just going to keep going at it till we're worn out.
Well, that sounds like a good idea there, Scotty.
It's a delightful idea.
Yeah.
So that should have said I chat with your sister more than he does. I don't know who Dave is talking to there. So Dave, you talking to me? You chat with my sister more than my brother does? That's possible. You probably might chat with her more than I do, for all I know, if you're talking about my sister. So it's the ladies' parlor, says Sarah Yusuf. And I'm kind of winding down because we got about a minute and 10 seconds left, and we have to sign off for radio.
Well, I think, there's a lot of people that's going to go out and buy the book, and it'll be quite interesting to see what everybody thinks of it.
I won't be one of them. It's just not of interest to me. It was like the special they did, the documentary, whatever it was, the interview special that came out to promote the book a couple of weeks ago.
Well, it can't be as bad as the Netflix series because that was awful.
That must have been it, the Netflix series. Because it's like, who watched that except, sorry, Wendy, I think probably in America, the only people who watch it were women who like to watch Lifetime TV.
Well, I watched the first couple of episodes, and after that I was like, oh my God, this is so cringeworthy.
Well, Wendy, let's say bid a fair adieu to our radio audience. Everybody else stick around. We'll be right back after this. Hang on. When we launch our television show and we do historical and paranormal investigating together over there, I think that should be our theme music.
I love that theme music. So many people tell me they love that music.
It's great music. I see all these paranormal shows and they all have to have creepy music and creepy letters. And I'm like, well, what should be creepy about it? Maybe you can get creeped out by some things with the unknown, but I thought it should be cool. It should be interesting. It should be all of those things.
It's kind of cool, and it's a little bit sassy, and it's kind of got that. It's definitely got that American tang to it, which I
definitely
love it.
It's got that deep South, that Confederacy type of
South.
Yeah. You from the South? Would you like a mint julep while you sit here on my veranda?
Always a part of America I'd love to come and see is the South, the South. Very much so. Thank you, Anita. I see a couple of my friends are on here.
Yes.
Ben, I want to say hello to Ben. He's on here.
Hey,
and
Ben.
Anita. It's so lovely to see them on here. But it's the truth is, looking when we talked about a subject, how could we not talk about this subject when everybody is talking about it?
Yes.
But also looking at it from a family. And one thing we didn't talk about on the radio, which I wanted to talk about, was the Yorkists, the York. And we're going back to Edward. I've got my history here. I've got to get my glasses on. 1 second.
Here, I'll join you.
So looking at here, we've got Edward, who had a brother George and a brother Richard. Now, Richard's probably well known because it's Richard III, Duke of York, with the humbug, as they call him. Well, obviously, Edward inherited the throne. There was a lot of rivalry between his brothers, George. And to be honestly, Richard seemed to be always having his brothers back. But George, there was a whole revolt. Duke of Clarence. And then you find out, if people want to read about this, the Kingmaker, Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick. There was a revolt led by Warwick to try and get rid of Edward and put George on the throne. Obviously, that didn't go down too well because Edward fled, then had to come back. We're going around the year 1470 for this. And then obviously he came back and took the throne, but his brother was punished by drowning in a vat or a keg of wine. He was drowned and killed that way. What a way to go! I have to
Yeah. I'll never drink wine again.
Exactly. But also, obviously, when Edward died suddenly, his son, Edward the Fifth, was due to take over the throne. And Richard the Third put those two boys into the Tower of London to protect them and keep them safe.
Yes.
And as history has shown, those two boys went in and never came out.
And there's several theories about what actually happened to them.
And he actually seized the throne. He should never have, he was like, why would I want my brother's children to come to the throne?
Right.
And he was the last king, Richard III, of the House of York. And he was also the last of the Plantagenet dynasty. And they are a fantastic dynasty, the Plantagenets, all the way back to King John of Magna Carta and Richard the Lionheart.
Everything I needed to learn about the Plantagenets, I learned on Blackadder.
Yes.
No,
absolutely.
I learned it other places.
But I mean, what happened to those boys? I mean, some say that one survived, one didn't. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There is a theory, and in several theories. I'll just enlist them by name without getting into them. One is that Richard III, of course, murdered them.
Mm-hmm.
There is Henry Stafford killed the boys.
Mm-hmm.
He was the Duke of Buckingham, and he supported the Duke of Gloucester in his royal coup. You had the theory that Henry VII slew the brothers.
Yes, was that Henry Tudor?
It was Henry Tudor. He's the progenitor of the Tudor line.
Yes.
And it was after his famous victory at Bosworth in 1485. Henry was clearly determined that he and his descendants should possess the throne. So by dispatching these kids, that's one of the theories. But did he do it is the big questions. And I will say this, that historians have reasoned that if Henry VII had done it, it must have happened no earlier than 1485 or 86.
I would imagine it was probably very easy if you paid someone a lot of money for them to go in to that room and those poor boys. Yep. Now, they did find recently skeletons in the tower, and but no DNA was done, or at least if it was done, it's not shared with the public, because the Queen actually didn't want, she didn't want to bring that public. But I don't know if Charles wants to find out. I think
that would be interesting.
I think everybody wants to know what happened to those two boys, because we've kind of taken them out to our heart, because they were put in there for safekeeping. The heir and the spare. You had the heir, Edward, and then you also had his younger brother, kept in there. I think his younger brother was Richard, actually. But Henry Tudor obviously became king. And as we well known, when Richard III died, and obviously he was slain, he was the last English king to die in battle. And obviously his corpse, Richard, was, as we well known, found hundreds of years later under a car park in Leicester.
Yes. It was a coffin under the car. I remember when that all came into the news just a few years ago.
And there was the funeral. He had a proper funeral. They wanted to take him back to York, but they actually kept him in Leicester, which I'm not sure he would have actually been too happy about. But even if you look at going on to Henry VII, he had two sons, Arthur and Henry VIII. And obviously Arthur was supposed to be the beloved prince that would come to the throne, and he was spoiled and looked after and everything. And Henry VIII was being groomed to be a more of he was Duke of York. He was due to be more like religious, maybe a religious undertaking. Well, when Arthur died of the plague or the sweating sickness or whatever they want to call it, Henry VIII, the Spare, became king. So it has happened. Heir and Spare, the Spare does become king one way or the other.
Yes.
Maybe that's
there's another theory, by the way. Margaret Beaufort killed the princes. And she's often been touted as a suspected killer because of she had this evident determination to get her son Henry Tudor's backside onto the throne.
All about the money.
There's another theory that the boys didn't die at all, that they survived.
Right. Yeah.
And that the 1674, the builders at the tower unearthed those skeletal remains of the two boys. And it was 10 feet below the foot of a staircase. And these were declared to be the bones of the princes. And they were reinterred in Westminster just a few years later. Despite Tyrrell's confession to Thomas More, that the bodies had been removed from there. But a controversial 1933 analysis of those skeletal remains of those two people was ultimately inconclusive. The bones remain unidentified to this day. So what if the boys were never murdered at all? There's one theory. I think this is interesting. That's why I'm going through it. There's one theory that maintains that Richard left the tower and survived into adulthood, but that Edward died of ill health in custody. And others have contended that the brothers were smuggled out and given new identities as the builders in Colchester, according to one version. And one man who took advantage of the contemporary rumors of the prince's escape was an Oxford priest named Richard Simon, who in 1487, he encouraged a young lad named Lambert Simnel to pose as the surviving Prince Richard, emerging to claim his birthright, though it was later changed to a nephew of Edward IV, and merely the puppet of an ill-conceived and short-lived rebellion. And Henry VII spared. He speared Simnel's life and took him on as a spit turner in the royal kitchens. So going from heir to the throne to the royal spit turner, there you are.
I think the most famous case is Perkin Warbeck, he claimed to be the Duke of York all the way through. He claimed to be the younger brother. And I think that when he turned up, it didn't go down incredibly well, because he was like, look, I am the younger brother. I'm the rightful. Yeah. And obviously no DNA, no checking. But he had made several landings in England backed by small armies. But obviously Henry VII's armies obviously then, beat them. And but eventually they got hold of him. And I believe they actually, he went through the tower in the end. Sadly, yeah, he was hanged. But the thing is, with the two boys, two young boys, two brothers, if they were kept in the tower and if they did die, their sisters were within protective custody with their mother, Elizabeth Woodville, I believe, and her daughter was then brought forward to marry Henry VII, and she was the mother of Henry VIII. Obviously, her daughter Elizabeth York. So they branched the War of the Roses, with the red Tudor and the white rose. Yeah. They brought the two together. So in the end, through those boys dying, his Edward, I've got to go back now on my history. Edward the Fourth's daughter came to the throne, and she wouldn't have come to the throne if her two brothers had not been killed. And it must have been weird for her, I would imagine, coming to the throne thinking, where are my brothers? Like, am I safe?
Yes. I would think that if they were survived somehow, we'd know. There'd be a way that we'd know about it.
Well, they would have killed them anyway. The Tudors would have killed them. There's no way they would have
Are
survived.
there any other stories of royals who just disappeared and we never heard about them again?
I think there's probably one right now. They probably want to do that.
Yeah. Gosh, we don't know what happened to him and his American
What
wife.
happened to Harry? I mean, the royal family over the years is. I mean, let's look at Edward VIII, who married Wallis Simpson. He was pumped off. Let's go and do this. You've got to go over and do something overboard. He was just ignored. It was like, you don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And I wonder if history will repeat itself. I doubt it. But my point being is that King Charles is an older gentleman. Mm-hmm. I think he probably wants to be seen as compassionate. I can't see him kicking his son out or taking away any of the titles. I don't see that. But when William comes to the throne, I think things might be very different. Because that's, if your brother stitched you up and basically said all this thing about you, you're not going to forget that in a hurry, are you? You're not going to forget it.
Yeah, I seem to remember this little book you wrote.
Yeah. And if it all goes, as we like to say in England, tits up with him and Meghan.
Tits up!
Tits up!
They say in Scotland.
But I just think it's really interesting when we talk about sibling rivalry. Can you imagine, like, just using that example, her brothers were murdered, and yet she's now being used as to cement things, and it's a lot of, when you look back at the monarchy and stuff like that, people think they have the life of Larry and luxury, but actually it's probably quite a very miserable family to be in.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be. Do you think Sarah Yusuf says in the chat room, I think Charles may hold on to resentment due to Camilla?
I would imagine. But having said that, also he has to swallow it and actually probably say, well, there were 3 of them in that marriage. Even though Diana went on to have affairs, which because everybody's known about, that marriage technically ended and went down the pan through Camilla. So you're quite right there, Sarah. I'm just reading, Matthew, what you've written here. Boy, royalty can get deep. Yes, they certainly can. Alexander the Great. Okay, let's see what else we've got down here.
So, that's all I got. That's about all I know. I can dig into history about the succession stuff and the brotherly stuff and the rivals and stuff of that, but there were always rivals. Always rivals.
And I think the thing with Camilla, let's be honest, the king married his mistress. And in history, kings never married their mistresses. They did not. And, when you look at her now, with all due respect, she's an older lady. She probably knows how to handle Charles quite well.
Probably.
And I imagine if anything happened to her, he's probably going to fall apart. And that's when William will take over more control of the throne.
Well, he's been with her for over 30 years. So
had he been allowed to marry her, or had things been different, then none of this would have happened. But, I can't help thinking that Diana was always meant to come. And it's quite interesting that Harry said he's been to see psychics. I actually quite believe.
You think to speak to her?
Well, he said I haven't read the whole chapter on it, but I did read that he's been to see psychics. He's spoken to her. She has come through. But being in America, I would imagine that's quite easy to do because America's far more open about psychics and clairvoyance and Meghan sounds to me like her, with her mother being into what she's into, that it's quite a thing that they talk, it's quite an open thing. So maybe Harry feels that he's got his mother's blessing. Who knows?
Who knows? And I was wondering if you knew anything about that. Did any accounts that he mentioned that you are aware of?
Well, let's have a look. But I will.
Let's do.
Prince Harry and psychic, because as I said, I've only read. I know Sally Morgan. I think it's Sally Morgan. that actually was the medium that Diana used to see. But here we are. Prince Harry has claimed a woman with powers relayed a message from his late mother to say that she is
watching,
living the life. He's living the life she couldn't.
You know, that's
That's
I'm
a
going to
very
say
easy
something
thing to
about
say, isn't it?
psychics here for a second, for a moment. Just give me a moment. Psychics, I'm not a disbeliever at all, because I have rubbed shoulders with and
Hello.
known some pretty, yeah, you're a psychic.
Yeah.
So, I know some pretty good psychics out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the psychics that the only messages, like I look at William going to this psychic, and she goes, "Oh, your mother, she's very, very happy for you. And she loves what you're doing. She likes where you're going. She wants you to know she's doing okay." And that's from your ma. And you're like, really? That's all Princess Diana had to say?
Well, apparently he writes of an incident that saw his son Archie accidentally smash a Christmas tree ornament in the shape of his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. He later writes that the woman he met knew about the incident and questioned him about it. Fair enough. But also, like, what gets me about all this Prince Harry stuff is that Diana had 2 sons, and both of them lost their mother. And William, he's in a way, he's got a voice, but he hasn't got a voice. He is in the establishment. He cannot come forward and just do this, that, and the other. And I think he sees things because he's going to be king.
Sure.
He can't go down that road. So in a way, Harry has got all this freedom to, be what he wants and do what he wants. He can live the life that William can never lead. I mean, there's all those stories about William supposed to have having an affair and stuff like that.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, who knows? But I do think that when you read about Harry seeing psychics, this is a gentleman that's been traumatized from, he lost his mum at an early age. He said he never shed a tear. He said he never looked into her death and saw the photographs until he was in his 20s. Anyone who loses their parent very, very early age, especially if it's a traumatic passing, I would imagine, is never really the same.
Yeah, you would think.
So, I mean, some of this is like, is this... And I think Meghan, how can I say this? As a counsellor looking at it, Meghan has come along to replace the mother figure.
Do you think for William, he's seeing her as a mama?
I think that in Harry's case, I think Meghan fulfills a lot of duties. I think she's covered a lot of boxes that he needed. In William, I wouldn't say so where Kate's concerned, that's for sure.
Chase Corrington, how you doing, Chase, over in the chat room? He says, I wonder how many of the children in these families are initiated into an occult side of the elite, and which ones are excluded, because we hear all these tales all the time, of course, of how these elite families, and they come from the Romanovs, and that are kind of spread and sprinkled all over Europe, and were there. To have a psychic wasn't out of the question, because there were many of them that followed in these occultic type of footsteps. Now, not cultic. Don't think, they all wear robes and get out daggers and kill small children and eat them. Not that, but these occultic connections, mysterious connections. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. I mean, as all the way going back, I would say political, famous, religious, royal, they've all got their hands in some kind of whatever it is. I mean, Prince Charles is known to have done seances. He's very into homeopathic. He's into healing. He's into astrology, and he's also into the psychic stuff. So, it's well known that he did stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yes, we've all heard the rumors that they're into the occult and that there are initiations.
Right.
And I'd love to know more about that, but at the
I
same
would too. There's a lot of information out there, so I hear. So, and of course, the queen was a reptilian, so
Well, we all have a reptile brain. Part of our brain is reptilian, right? So
yeah, there's some of that. Well, you're handling that very matter of factly. You aren't taking the bait and jumping shit. So, thank you, David Icke.
You're gonna love that. I like David. I got a lot of time for the man, a lot of time for him. A lot of things he said have come true, and I think the poor bugger has been berated enough, and I think he's got his fingers in the pie. He knows what's going on. Diana, I mean, I would imagine between Diana's book, although her children were still in the royal family, and Harry, would that not have come out somewhere along the line? Would they have told them, or would they have kept that quiet? Probably they would keep that quiet.
I would think so.
Yeah.
So
first, I mean, he's already in trouble for actually saying about how many people he killed when he went to Afghanistan.
Yes. Which shouldn't be a big deal. If you're there fighting, it happens.
I only get reptilian if I don't use enough moisturizer. Well,
there you go, Sarah. Yes. So I suppose there's a lot more that we could dig into on this topic if we wanted to. Just like every topic we talk about. It could go on for hours and forever. But so I think we could kind of wrap it there, unless you've got anything in particular you still want to say about it, Wendy.
It's interesting, actually, because, and forgive me for not knowing the gentleman's name, but if you Google it, if you go on YouTube, there is a gentleman who talks about the occult and witchcraft and the satanic cults, and he talks about a lot of famous people that have joined them, and including, I believe, some royalty as well. And it gives you a list of names of people that have paid, because a lot of these cults, there's only two ways to get out. One is this, that you might leave, but you're always supporting and paying. And another one is a not particularly nice way. But I would say that it's quite interesting for people to go and these cults have massive support. And there's money, and these are people that you don't want to screw around with.
Right.
And I'm very careful what I say, because we all know someone of someone and someone. So, but I would say if people Google it and they go on to YouTube and there's a gentleman, I have to find his name. Perhaps we can put it down later on in the comments. But he actually comes up with a list of people that were and have given money towards stuff like this. So I would say, I mean, people talk about Beyonce and Lady Gaga all being involved in it. So I guess it's the roots go deep.
Yeah. And as we used to say, Fat Tony should be very happy. Should you not talk about the organization?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
We just walk around the surfaces of there are some things that I have absolute no indeed of saying or talking about, because we all know someone or someone or someone. So no. But I think if you do enough research yourself, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yes. Well, what do you think? Should we call it?
It's from London. It is now 11:25 p.m. But as usual, Scotty, with you, I could go all night.
Thank you. We'll leave it there. Let's. Why don't you stick around, Wendy? When we go out, I want to talk to you for a couple of minutes off air. And folks, we want to thank you for being here. Thanks for giving us your time, and it means a lot to us. And if you like this show, like the what do the kids all say?
Like,
Smash that
share,
like
and
button.
subscribe.
And smash the like button. Spread the word a little bit, and we'll see what we can do to maybe grow this show as we keep going down the road here. And I don't know, maybe some good.
And think about the TV show to come and Scotty's Adventures in the UK.
Yes. I think we'll tell you more about that as we talk about it more and plan about it more. But how many of you would like to see something like that? Wendy and me and Mark English getting together over there and touring some of the sites. What's that?
Oh my God, that conjures up a vision. Mark on here and you on there. Oh my God.
There it is. Yes, yeah. Again, we'll have to do some arm wrestling, but
and obviously Mark and I are talking about popping over to the States as well.
That's right.
And although we might be in a different area, but hopefully we could all.
We'll find a way.
I think it's about time we did.
I think it's about time we did as well.
Life's too short.
And that's coming up in March or April, correct? Something like that. The talk is that it's out there somewhere.
April.
You'll have to. We'll do some sites up here in the Minneapolis, St. Wisconsin
Mark
area.
Seems to be set on going to Florida because he's into
Florida
and Florida Keys. He's like, I've got to go, Wendy. But I'll chat to him again. But we are actually going to do an episode of Strangely Us, which so that it would be nice to have that kind of a dynamic with my hubby, my other professional hubby. But he's looking forward to working with my other hubby.
yes. Yeah. It's kind of a menage.
Good to see Mark back Mark back in the swing of it because he's been out a while. You know, his mum sadly passed away, and he's taken a bit of time for bereavement. But I think he's chomping at the bit to actually chat with you, and also for us to get back with Strangely Us as well.
Yes. And we'll keep everybody up to date. And if we actually start launching some preliminary forays, volleys into the television thing, we'll, of course, keep you all apprised of that.
Definitely on a diet for that one.
Yeah, me too. I need it. You don't. I have to start working out. So it'll be like one.
It's just like show us from this part. Just show us from this part. Don't show us
just
from
go.
Because they say thank you for everyone in the lovely comments that everybody's written. It means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Cordia, for saying that.
Spirit, Heart,
and
God,
Matthew, and everybody.
Thank you, Wendy and Scotty. I enjoyed the topics. Fabulous. Thank you, Anita. I'm so glad you caught me this time.
I'm glad you're here too, Anita. And everybody who came here today, thank you.
Yeah.
You can see this show if you missed any portion of it. It'll be right here on my YouTube channel. You'll be able to access it in the archives, the Robertson archive section of my YouTube page. And so I guess that's it, Wendy. We're doing the long goodbye, but
it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from Wendy, and goodbye from me. And as always, I'll always say, live long and prosper.